When I started doing YouTube over 10 years ago, I was asked to go into with a group of YouTubers basically talking about what film scared you, left a mental scar on you. And for me at the time, that movie was Terror Train. And now in 2022, on Tubi of all places, we see a brand new version of Terror Train that's been getting a lot of hate, but it deserves it. Let's find out right here in the Call to Cinema. If you've seen the original Terror Train, then you know the setup. Basically, a pledge by the name of Kenny, kind of geeky guy, though he doesn't look as geeky as the guy in the original film, is set up to think that he's going for this very popular, attractive girl. In the original, it was Jamie Lee Curtis, and in the new one, it is Robin Alomar, who plays Alana. She thinks he's going to go into the room. She's going to pretend use her voice and basically hide behind a curtain with the lights off. He's going to get in the bed. It's going to be kind of a dummy. Unfortunately, what really happens is they've actually put a corpse from into the bed, and well, Kenny loses it completely and goes off to an asylum. Now it's set 3 years later, and they're graduating. So what they're doing is they're having a costume party on a train, and that train in the original was Ben Johnson, and in the new one we have two conductors. We have Mary Walsh playing Carney, and we have Nadine Baba playing Sadie. We had Hart Bachner playing Doc in the original, and in this one we have Mateus Garado, and we have Cortion Moore who plays Mo. And in the magician, as a magician, we don't have David Copperfield, so we don't have a real magician in here. So, but we do have Tim Rosen, who is an incredibly good actor. So he gets that really dark magician thing down pretty pat. If you've ever seen Tim Rosen, you know he's not a hard thing for him to do. He's actually fairly good when it comes to these type of darker roles. Now, when people talk about remaking a film, usually a lot of times they talk about things like the remake of Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, and they wonder like why remake something. It's a classic. It's already been it's been perfected. You can't build upon perfection. Now, Terror Train is a favorite of mine. I've loved it for as long as I didn't see it years ago until I did see it, and it creeped the heck out of me. That being said, Terror Train is a fairly flawed film. Most of the reason you remember Terror Train is for three reasons, actually. One, it stars Jamie Lee Curtis, the Scream Queen. Two, David Copperfield, the famous magician, is in it. And three, that twist. You know the twist. You know the one I'm talking about. Well, that twist is negated in this film because the character that would have to be revealed for that twist isn't in the movie. So, right out of the gate, it's made a little bit more different and difficult to guess who the killer is. We still have the concept of a killer going around killing and changing costumes on the train, basically getting revenge. But because one, we've seen Kenny a bit more in not in light, but he'd be noticeable. There is no person for him to be. So we have to wonder: has Kenny changed in 3 years? Have they switched it the actor? Have they changed it up a bit due to the original twist? Is it actually the mysterious magician this time? Well, that I can't tell you. One thing that I can tell you is, you know what? The acting is actually pretty damn decent in this film, especially for the way a slasher movie goes. It has a bit of gore. People say that they cut away from the murders, but we still get the gore sequences there. There's one where he's sawing at the neck, and there's another one where the killer actually is stabbing viciously on this girl that I didn't want to see get killed. There's some decent kills, and there's a fair amount of blood in this film. So anybody that tells you this movie's bloodless, they're not being completely straight with you. It's not overly super gory, and there is since this is a tip the hat to 80s slasher films, there is some fleeting nudity. You can blink and miss it, but it is there. And for 80s slasher fans, it was kind of a requirement back in the day. The cast overall is a really good, solid cast. There are some decent murders. Costumes aren't quite as memorable or inventive as in the original film. The costumes in the original film, there were a couple that really creeped me out. There was only one that really kind of worked in this one, and that's the killer looking clown costume. It's actually fairly decent. It's a pretty creepy looking clown costume, and when it's utilized fairly well. The other costumes that we see him go in, like the obligatory lizard man type costume, not so much. Overall, this was a decent film. Is it as good as the original 1980s Terror Train? Although it's a remake of the 1980s Terror Train, and it is pretty much at the start a beat for beat version of the film, it still becomes sort of its own thing in the final act. I did guess who the killer was, and I'm actually fairly proud of myself because they throw in some red herrings, and I'm not going to lie, they throw in some good red herrings. Another complaint that I've seen about the film is that some people didn't like the ending, that it was kind of rushed. This movie improves upon the ending of the original Terror Train. If you've ever seen the original film, then, you know, Kenny goes to get his kiss, and, well, pretty much what he gets knocked out of the train. That's it. It's pretty quick. You can kind of blink and miss it. There's a fairly decent chase sequence, but you're left kind of cold at the end of the original Terror Train. I was. And to this very day, although I do love the film and I do put it on fairly much in rotation when I'm watching my slashers, this one did it a bit better because they do a bit longer on the reveal. I did like who they chose to be the killer and to play the killer, and I thought it was a nice twist on what had been done before. You couldn't do what was done before, and I think if you did a movie like Sleepaway Camp, it would be a lot harder because it kind of hinges on that old twist. Terror Train is exactly what it is. It's an 80s slasher film that's fun, is remembered for some fairly decent things. But much like movies like Prom Night, it's probably has a better reputation than it actually really deserves. I enjoyed the remake of Terror Train. I thought they did a good job with the casting. I was really, really liking the leads. What really surprised me is the guy that plays Doc. I was a very nervous going in. I'm a big Hart Bachner fan, and yeah, I actually am. There's actually Hart Bachner fans out there, but this guy does it in such a way that actually Hart Bachner was probably a slight more a bit of an ass than this guy is. This guy seems, yeah, he's a jerk, but he's a conflicted jerk, and I liked him. The guy that did the film did a good job. The lead, Alana, she was really good in it. We actually have two leads in this one because we now have this new conductor, this younger conductor, and she is incredible as well. And it left me a little concerned because I liked both of the leads in this film. I I was actually nervous on, because when you get two leads in a movie, usually watch the Friday 13th like kind of remake. You know exactly what I mean. One of those leads aren't making it out of there. And I can tell you right now, when I was watching this movie, there wasn't a time when I looked at one of those girls and I'm like, yeah, I don't care if you get killed. I did. I cared on both of those, if both those girls got killed. So it left me conflicted on, okay, if there's going to be one final girl, who do I want it to be? So there's a lot of positives for me there. I just got finished watching it. I'll probably watch it again in another couple of days just to get a better grasp on it. But my initial review for Terror Train is it's definitely worth a watch. It is an 80s slasher film, much in the style of the old school 80s slasher films. It takes a film and a formula that was pretty standard and does something unique and new with the premise. And again, no, both unique and new, and nothing new at the same time. We have a new ending, but it's a pretty paint by numbers slasher film. So if you're not a slasher fan, this is going to change your mind. If you hold like Terror Train in as high a regard as I do, you might have a little bit of a tough time with the fact that they've changed the ending of the film. But if you like the film and you realize that it was a pretty standard slasher for the day, you're going to be able to get behind this. There's some decent kills. I know there could have been more. They could have been overboard with it. But I got news for you. In the early 80s slasher films, didn't always go overboard with it either. Some of them actually were a lot tamer than you realize. Not every film had a Savini. Terror Train. I give it a recommendation. Get on board, check it out, watch it. And it's okay if you don't like it. You can feel free to say that, it wasn't your bag down in the comment section down below. But, or make your own video and do your own review. Either way, I went in with very low expectations for Terror Train. It was a Tubi original. I haven't really had a lot of luck with Tubi originals. And it was a film by the people that made Slasher, the Slasher TV series. So for those that don't know, there's a TV series in Canada called Slasher. Every season is like American Horror Story, but a slasher villain. Sometimes Slasher, the series, can be a bit heavy-handed and a bit convoluted. It goes a little too far, and a lot of the characters tend to be unlikable or a bit of a trope. So I was very surprised when I watched when I went and looked at the writers that it was them, because honestly, why can't they make a season of Slasher that's this good? I'm Aaron. Thank you for joining me in the Call to Cinema, and all aboard.